You wake up late. You tell yourself, I'll start in a little bit. But instead, you scroll through one more video, play one more game. And by the end of the day, you're lying in the dark, asking that same familiar question: what am I actually doing with my life? Most people will look at this routine and call it laziness. They'll tell you to be more disciplined, or that you just need better time management skills. Beneath that surface of poor discipline, your mind is often deploying a psychological shield, a deep subconscious panic triggered by the weight of real responsibility. The Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung had a name for this state. He called it the puer aeternus, Latin for the eternal boy. If you are caught in this syndrome, you likely have a lot of ideas and sharp instincts, but your defining trait is an extreme desire for absolute freedom. You want to keep every single option available, pacing in front of a dozen open doors, but refusing to commit and actually walk through any of them. Jung described this as living a provisional life. You convince yourself that your current job, your messy room, or your relationship is merely temporary. Deep down, you believe you are an undiscovered star in a waiting room, biding time until your real life begins. By never fully committing to anything, you avoid the risk of failure. You choose to sit in the stands and watch other people build their lives, using that supposed freedom as a shield to protect yourself from ever stepping onto the field. To understand why you trap yourself in this cocoon, we have to look backward. Many individuals stuck in this cycle share a surprisingly common origin. They were highly gifted children. If you learned quickly without much effort, you received constant praise from parents and teachers. You were labeled a special. But those early compliments accidentally created a trap. You built your entire sense of self-worth around having massive, untapped potential, rather than producing actual results. Then you hit adulthood. The real world doesn't care about your potential. It recognizes tangible output and persistence. When you start a new career, you aren't great right away. You make mistakes, and you see others outperforming you. For someone who grew up believing they were naturally exceptional, this friction feels like a direct threat to the ego. To protect itself from feeling inadequate, your mind activates an automatic defense mechanism: procrastination. By delaying a project or avoiding a commitment, you maintain a comforting illusion. As long as you never truly try, you never have to face your actual level of ability. You get to keep the perfect idea of yourself safely inside your head. This is the modern tragedy of Icarus. In mythology, he flew too close to the sun on wax wings, believing he was untouchable. When you confuse raw, unearned potential with real achievement, your grand plans will melt the moment they touch the heat of reality. Chronic avoidance is an active strategy designed to hide you from your own flaws. It prefers the guaranteed safety of fantasy over the inevitable friction of the real world. When the gap between your imagined greatness and your actual reality widens, you rely on 3 daily psychological traps to keep this defensive illusion intact. The first trap involves psychological anesthetics. You dive into hours of video games or endless short-form feeds to use these short-term pleasures as a painkiller, numbing the anxiety of standing completely still. The second trap involves evading commitment. In the early stages of a relationship, everything is exciting. But the second you are asked to take on real responsibility or make a promise about the future, you feel trapped. You start inventing tiny flaws in your partner to justify pulling away. Over time, this devolves into a subtle dependency. You unconsciously draw in a partner who handles the heavy lifting, managing the finances, cleaning, carrying the emotional weight, so you can safely remain stuck in the role of the child being taken care of. Trap 3 is the victim mentality. This syndrome twists your perspective until you view normal external pressures, like deadlines or authority figures, as unfair enemies actively targeting you. It is exactly like Peter Pan viewing the adult Captain Hook as pure evil. In your life, Captain Hook is your boss, the rules of society, and the ticking clock of time that is demanding you grow up. Yes, the job market is harsh and the economy is difficult. But the moment you use those truths as your primary excuse not to act, you accidentally surrender total control of your life to your circumstances. These 3 fortifications work to protect your ego from short-term discomfort, but they guarantee the long-term destruction of your personal agency. Recognizing these traps shouldn't make you spiral into guilt. Guilt is an easy emotion that rarely leads to action. Escaping this cocoon requires actively adopting the exact structures of adulthood you've been running from. Breaking this state begins by redefining responsibility. You must dismantle the belief that adulthood kills creativity. In reality, discipline provides the exact structure needed to take raw ideas and make them real. You must learn to embrace the mundane. The eternal boy looks down on daily routines because they feel too small for his grand potential. Pull your mind out of the clouds by cleaning your room, folding your clothes, and paying your bills in total silence. These actions physically anchor you back to reality. To further dismantle the defense, practice exposure therapy to failure. Deliberately attempt a task where you might be clumsy, like sending out a resume or asking for direct feedback. You will prove to your ego that rejection is survivable. Finally, you must secure an outside structure that holds you accountable. Because your mind is currently too good at negotiating away discomfort, you need a strict mentor or a disciplined community that expects you to finish what you promised. Real achievement belongs to the person who leaves the safety of potential to have their character forged through the grit and scratches of the real world. Character is truly shaped only when you fall down, brush the dust off your knees, and just keep going. Carl Jung left us with a severe warning. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. If you continue to treat today like a temporary waiting room, that helpless regret becomes a weight you carry into your relationships and eventually pass down to the next generation. It is time to choose between the safety of the cocoon or the reality of the field.